Hi, I'm Tom Rosenbauer, and I'm going to give you some tips for wading tricky current. Now, first of all, you need to be prepared, okay? You need to have a wader belt, and you need to have it cinched tightly. The reason is that if you fall in, it's going to keep most of the water from getting down inside your waders. It'll trap some air in there, it'll give you some buoyancy, and if you do have to get out of the water, your waders won't be totally full of water. Also, may keep your phone and your wallet dry if you fall in. So have a wader belt, make sure it's cinched tightly. The other thing that you probably want is a wading staff, and one that's unobtrusive and just hangs on your belt is a really good idea. I just pull it out, put it together, it snaps together, and now I've got a third leg to help me, and a wading staff can be a real boon in tricky current. When you use a wading staff, keep it relatively close to your body, and I think the best place to place it is just a little bit downstream of you and off to the side, so that you can use that as a third leg. If you put the wading staff in an upstream direction, you may get pulled away from it. So use a wading staff slightly downstream, lean against it, and then take your next step. Take your next step where you find a good purchase, and then reposition the wading staff and take another step, another couple steps. And don't fall in. If you're in heavy current and you have to turn around, always turn around in an upstream direction, leaning a little bit into the current. If you turn around facing downstream, it's easy for that current to start pushing you in that direction. And another thing to remember is that you present much less resistance to the current when you're sideways to the current. So try to always position your body. Sometimes you can actually crab upstream like this, presenting less resistance to the current. Once I turn around and I'm facing the current directly, I've got more current pushing me. So keeping yourself sideways is going to help you angle into that current as well. So when you're about to wade some tricky current, one of the things you want to remember is that you should always work upstream. You should always work against the current. And the reason is, if you find yourself getting into water that's too deep or too fast, you can always retrace your steps and get back to a safe place. If you wade downstream and you find yourself getting into a hole or a drop off or something, you may not be able to turn around and get back to where you started. So always work, especially in unfamiliar water, always work upstream against the current so that you can easily retrace your steps. Rocks can get really slippery, especially if it hasn't rained in a while and you haven't had a flood. Rocks will build up a layer of algae and diatoms, and they can be quite slippery. When you're wading, you want to try to avoid the bigger rocks and look for smaller rocks or patches of gravel. Those are places where you're going to get a much better purchase. When you start trying to step on bigger rocks, there's much more of a chance of slipping. When you're wading on slippery rocks, make sure to keep your weight concentrated below your shoulders. Keep the weight around the center of your body. Move slowly and feel with one foot, and then feel with your toe. Grip with your toe onto a place, and then put the rest of your weight down, and then take your other foot and work with your toe, find your purchase, press down, and then keep moving that way, keeping your weight centered. One of the worst things you can do is to cross your feet. So if you have a center line here in the center of your body, putting one foot across that center line is going to throw you off balance. So make sure that you keep that weight centered underneath your shoulders.